Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal. KOMO4's Denise Whitaker heads east in search of the hole.
For many years, the mystery of Mel's Hole has captivated curious minds. A seemingly strange, unexplained, bottomless pit deep in the forest of Washington has sparked a number of rumors. But now, scientists claim to have finally solved the mystery of Mel's Hole, and the truth is far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. What secrets does this mystery hold, and why does the solution leave us questioning the truth behind the reality of the hole? Join us as we reveal the truth behind the Mel's Hole mystery, the strange call. The Mel's Hole mystery has finally been solved after it has existed since February 21st, 1997.
All right. When did you discover this hole?
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now, and the hole has been there since we've been there. It's been there since the previous owner was there, and the previous owner there was quite elderly.
When an American iconic host, Art Bell, received a strange call on his coast-to-coast AM radio show from a man named Mel Waters, who claimed to have discovered something unbelievable on his property near Manastash, which is 9 miles and approximately 14 kilometers west of Ellensburg in Kittitas County, Washington. In this video, we will shed more light into what he saw and the bizarre experiments and events connected to it. The next revelation will keep you on the edge of your seat. Mel Waters was said to have discovered a pretty unusual hole on the rural property he owned. He claimed that all the locals knew about the strange hole and that everyone used it for garbage disposal on a daily basis. Old refrigerators, used tires, even dead cattle were said to be tossed in all the time, and yet the hole never got filled up. Not only can you throw as much junk as you want into the hole without it ever hitting the bottom or the hole ever filling up, it has other strange properties. The hole reportedly looks like a well, about 9 feet across, walled with stone, and with a 3 to 4 foot high stone wall surrounding it. Mel claimed to have used a fishing line and a weight to measure it, which he said was about 80,000 feet deep, and that he believed some weird paranormal things had been going on there. He spoke about a black beam, which could come out of a hole and shoot into the sky during certain periods of the day. He also claimed that his neighbor's dead dog had been seen alive sometime after it was thrown into the hole. Metals held close to the hole's 9-foot diameter opening reportedly changed into other metals or substances. Radios brought near the hole were said to have played old-time radio broadcasts. Mel Waters believed the place has some kind of weird presence that makes animals avoid it. Many listeners were reported to have been convinced that his story was true.
It's actually really interesting just in how, say, a broadcast on national radio could suddenly spawn 5, 10 different websites and forums. And I was looking at melshole.com or something like that.
He was said to believe the hole had magical powers, which could restore life in animals and set ice on fire before the call went public. Jack Powell, a popular geologist, was particularly said to be interested in the story after he had heard it on the radio. He was reported to have found it interesting because Mel claimed it was basically a bottomless pit. Jack, who had been in geology for decades, claimed to be familiar with the fact that the deepest shaft goes a bit over 40,000 feet below the surface. Jack was also reported to have investigated the mysterious case, but couldn't find the hole despite his countless trials and efforts. According to Mel Waters, the hole's magical properties prompted the U.S. federal agents to seize the land and fund his relocation to Australia. After the 1997 appearance on the Coast to Coast show, Mel Waters was reported to have made guest appearances again on Bell's show in February 21 and 24 in the year 2000 and 2002. Rebroadcasts of those appearances were said to have helped create what was described as a modern and rural myth. Another report has it that the exact location of the hole was unspecified, yet several people claim to have seen it. A self-described intertribal medicine man named Gerald Osborne, who was also known as Red Elk, was said to have told reporters in 2012 that he visited the hole many times since 1961 and claimed the U.S. government maintained a top-secret base there, where alien activity takes place. Does Mel's Hole truly exist? You're about to find out. Claims about Mel's Hole existence and location. It was reported that Mel Waters and those who have searched for the hole and claim to have found it have never revealed publicly the exact location. They were reported to have always said it was on Manistash Ridge, which is some 9 to 10 miles southwest of Ellensburg. Re-enter State Department of Natural Resources geologist Jack Powell of Ellensburg, who was among those that listened during one of the earliest Coast to Coast AM shows with Mel Waters, said it got his interest in a funny kind of way when he was driving back home from an out-of-county task. He said he knew that Art Bell's stuff was basically Sasquatch and UFOs, but it was kind of entertaining. Jack Powell, who has worked as an exploratory geologist for petroleum companies, taught geology at CWU for 11 years, and has worked with the DNR for more than 20 years, said he knew where the hole was. He revealed that he grew up in the Kittitas Valley as a kid and played around an old gold mine shaft that went down at an angle into a field northwest Ellensburg. He said the shaft on the valley floor was likely 90 feet deep or more. He added that it may have been as much as 300 feet deep when it was an active mine. Recently, Seattle's Como TV station broadcasted a news segment about the continuing mystery surrounding Mel's Hole. The segment was said to have included comments from Red Elk, the intertribal medicine man who lived in the Kittitas Valley. He contended that his father showed him the hole around 1961 and that it was bottomless. Another popular geologist, who had spent 30 years exploring the geology of eastern Washington, said if they had talked about the north side of the valley, he might have stayed with the program for a little longer. He said the hole he thought he knew was somehow made into Mel's Hole. He said it's not geographically and physically possible for a hole to be that deep. He concluded that whoever Mel Waters was, he probably knew about the hole northwest of Ellensburg that was on a private property, fenced with barbed wire, and not too far from state DNR lands. He claimed that Mel Waters must have used the real hole as a kind of inspiration for making up his mysterious one on Manistash Ridge. A government official, who recently spoke to Omo TV station about Mel's Hole, said that would be the last time he will take the media out on Manistash Road for an interview about it. He was said to have refused to show the TV crew the hole. He said it's far more important to seek one's spiritual life than seeking a hole. He advised that people stay away from trying to find it. He revealed that the government has it and it's totally off limits. He also claimed to have visited the hole several times and that it's dangerous. He said the hole leads to an underground shadow government facility, and that the hole was carefully camouflaged with a cover to look like the surrounding lands, so it can't be found. He acknowledged the fact that he has been burnt out by the media, but acknowledged that the crew did a good job with Mel's Hole segment and was respectful towards him. Mel's Hole mystery finally solved. In 2002, a group of 30 people led by Gerald Osborne was said to have undertook an expedition to find the hole, but were unable to locate it. Local news reporters who investigated the claims were said to have found no public records of anyone named Mel Waters ever residing in or owning a property in Kittitas County. According to State Department of Natural Resources geologist Jack Powell, the hole does not exist and is geologically impossible. He claimed a hole of that depth would collapse into itself under the tremendous pressure and heat from the surrounding rocks. Powell said an ordinary old mine shaft on private property was probably the inspiration for the stories. He said that Mel's Hole had established itself as a legend based on no evidence at all. Pat Pringle, who happened to be another geologist, doubted Waters' story about having lowered 80,000 feet, which is 24 meters of fishing line, into a hole. He said that the heat of the earth would have snapped it before it could reach such a depth. The mystery was said to be fast becoming an urban legend until the unexpected was discovered. The next revelation will send shivers down your spine. Unexpectedly, many people were reported to have found the hole and claimed to have seen weird things happen there. Reports have it that strange noises were heard coming out of the hole. Others were reported to have seen lights and unusual creatures coming out of the hole. Some were said to have believed the hole goes all the way down to the center of our planet, whereas others went as far as to think that it's a secret portal to another dimension. A few other persons were said to have believed that Mel's Hole is a spot where space and time are warped. It was believed that people or objects that enter it never come back, and no one sees them ever again. Scientists were said to have compared Mel's Hole to Kola Superdeep Borehole, a hole which was said to be human-made and believed to be the deepest hole ever mentioned. The hole, which is reportedly covered, welded shut, and sits among the abandoned ruins of a particular project site, is reported to have taken around 20 years for the people who made it to reach that many miles under the surface. A 2.7 billion-year-old rock was reported to have stopped them, coupled with the temperature, which was said to be about 356 Fahrenheit, which was almost twice as hot as the team thought it would be. It was reported that the description of the hole looked like something from horror movies. Many people were said to have wandered around it and accidentally fallen inside it, which makes it a bit scary. It is believed that many people are still afraid of it and are not comfortable with this hole. Many claim that they hear terrifying screams at night, like that of people being tortured and demons coming out of it. The Mel's Hole was reported to be scary and toxic, as it is also believed to be full of dangerous chemicals and heavy metals. It was also said to have ended many birds that landed on it. It was said that if anybody wants to go there, he or she must check it out from a safe distance. The Mel's Hole was said to have taken on a life of its own, as people were said to have given different opinions about it. Some believed it was a tale that involved paranormal activities. Others believed it was a government conspiracy and about dead animals coming back to life. It is widely believed that those who perpetuated the myth can't or won't reveal the exact location of the supposedly supernatural hole. For years, the mystery of Mel's Hole has captivated the public. Yet despite numerous attempts to uncover its secrets, all efforts have seemed in vain. This mysterious hole has been a source of intense curiosity and speculation from the moment of its discovery, leaving many to ponder what truly lies at its bottom. Fortunately, scientists have recently achieved a breakthrough, revealing a terrifying phenomenon hidden within the depths of Mel's Hole. What secrets are concealed within its dark confines? And what do these findings mean for humanity? Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear will blow your mind. The universe is a vast and mysterious place, full of secrets that keep us intrigued and curious about our own existence here on Earth. One story that has captured people's imaginations is the tale of Mel's Hole. It all began on a radio show called Coast to Coast AM on February 21st, 1997, when a man named Mel Waters called in to narrate his discovery of a strange hole in a rural property he bought near Ellensburg, Washington. Coast to Coast AM is a radio show known for exploring strange and paranormal phenomena. It's the kind of show that taps into our fascination with things that can't be easily explained. So when Mel shared his story about an unexplainable hole, it grabbed the attention of listeners around the world. It was like opening a new chapter in the exploration of the mysteries that our planet holds. Mel's was no mere hole. It was a bottomless hole that seemed to scare everyone who lived around it. Just 80 miles outside of Ellensburg, Washington, in the small town of Manistash, there lies a mystifying cavity known as Mel's Hole. This strange opening in the earth has perplexed the locals for decades, but no one more so than Mel Waters himself.
Many locals claim to know about the hole, but it didn't really become a phenomenon until 1997, when Mel Waters went on the Coast to Coast radio show with Art Bell.
You see, Mel moved onto the rural property in the 1990s, completely unaware of the uncanny happenings surrounding his new land. Get girded, because in a few minutes we are going to embark on a terrifying ride about one of the many mysteries of our Earth. What terrifying discovery was made in Mel's Hole? At first, Mel was told by neighbors that the hole had been used for decades as a dumping ground for all sorts of undesirable trash and broken machinery. But here's the eerie part. No matter how much junk and waste the townspeople dumped into its depths, the hole never seemed to fill up. In fact, if you peered over the edge, all you could see was pitch blackness. No sign of a bottom whatsoever. Stranger still, not a single sound echoed back, even if you dropped large, heavy objects down its throat. Once Mel started living there, even weirder stuff started happening around the hole. There were screams and howls late at night. Strange lights flickered up from inside it. Things would disappear if you left them near the hole. Mel got totally obsessed with figuring out what was up with this bottomless pit, and the more he studied it, the more scary secrets he uncovered. On his quest to uncover the mystery of the hole, He first set out to uncover the reason behind the hole not filling up. So he started conducting experiments to get a sense of just how deep it went. First, he began dropping heavy tools into its dark depths, hoping to hear them hit the bottom with a thud or splash. But each time, all he heard was silence. No matter how heavy the object, not a single sound echoed back up. It was almost as if the objects just vanished into thin air. This really made Mel scratch his head in curiosity. Typically, when you drop something down a deep hole, you expect some noise, a dull thump if it's hitting solid ground, or a splash if there's water below. But the void-like silence from Mel's hole defied logic. This led Mel to wonder, could this pit truly have no bottom at all? Not one to give up easily, Mel came up with a clever idea using candy and a fishing line. He attached some sweets to the end of a long line and lowered it into the blackness. If the candy came back up dissolved, that would mean there was water at the bottom. But if it returned with dirt stuck to it, that would indicate a dry surface down below. After exhausting about 1,500 feet of line, Mel drew the candy back up. Shockingly, it was still perfectly intact. Feeling he was onto something, Mel bought spool after spool of fishing line and tied them together. Once again, he began lowering the line into the pit, but the hole just kept swallowing up more and more lines, with no end in sight. After what must have been miles and miles of line, Mel checked and realized over 80,000 feet had disappeared into the darkness. That's when Mel knew for sure that there was no ordinary cavity in the ground. This was a genuine bottomless pit of the most perplexing order. Mel now felt certain this was no ordinary hole. He knew he had to share this with the world. And so he contacted his friend Art Bell, host of a paranormal radio talk show. He pleaded with Art to help him get conclusive proof of the hole's seemingly endless depth. Together, they came up with more elaborate tests. They lowered two-way radios, hoping to pick up voices from the other side. They dropped glowing flares and cameras hooked to monitors, attempting to catch a glimpse of what lay beneath. Just like the others, the camera went down and kept extending hundreds and hundreds of feet until it disappeared into the murky blackness. But the camera picked up no sign of an end. The instruments confirmed it. This was a genuine bottomless pit. The mysterious hole on Mel's property had everyone scratching their heads. Speculation arose about what could possibly be down there in that deep, dark void. Mel's friend Art suggested they lower someone down to investigate, suspended by a line and pulley for safety. But Mel wasn't so sure about that idea. He had two major concerns. First, what if the air down there was dangerous? There could be toxic gases or other hazards that could harm or even kill a person. Mel certainly didn't want to risk someone's life that way. Who knows what kinds of fumes have accumulated in that long, undisturbed pit. Even a short exposure might be fatal, and Mel refused to put someone in that kind of danger just to satisfy curiosity. Second, the paranormal events surrounding the hole made Mel uneasy about sending someone down there. What if they disappeared mysteriously or ended up dead? Mel feared anyone who went down there might fall victim to supernatural forces beyond their control. He pictured them suspended on that line, screaming for help as some unseen entity dragged them into the shadows below. Mel shivered just thinking about it. Despite those concerns, some daredevils volunteered to explore the hole anyway, but Mel stood firm and refused to allow it. He hoped there might be a way to satisfy the curiosity about the hole without endangering lives. Then, one day, something really strange happened. According to Mel, one of his neighbors had a hunting dog that died naturally. Instead of burying the dog properly, the owner just threw the body into the strange pit on Mel's property. But incredibly, just a few days later, the hunter saw his dead dog, looking healthy and alive, running toward the woods. The dog showed no signs of injury or decay. It was like it had never died at all. The strangest of all is that even though the dog had been very attached to its owner when alive, it didn't respond when the hunter called out or whistled. It was as if the revived dog had no memory of its former companion. Mel said the neighbor whistled over and over for the dog he thought was his, but the dog totally ignored him. It was like this living ghost had no loyalty or memory of its previous master. The hunter was certain this was the same dog. The collar proved it was his. But the dog acted like a completely different animal. This weird story raises many questions. Did the dog somehow come back to life after being tossed in the pit? Did the hole's strange energy restore the dead body? Or did the grieving owner only imagine he saw his dead pet? Could he have mistaken some other similar dog for his own? Before long, Mel's Hole had transformed from a local curiosity into a full-blown paranormal phenomenon. To lay credence to his claim, a man named Red Elk had some wild stories about Mel's mysterious hole. Red Elk was actually named Gerald Osborne, and he was a Native American medicine man. Back in 1961, when Red Elk was young, his dad apparently showed him this crazy deep hole called Mel's Hole. Back in the 1960s, a Native American medicine man named Red Elk claimed to have stumbled upon a crazy deep hole in rural Washington state that locals called Mel's Hole. Apparently, his own father first showed him the endless pit back in 1961, and since then, he said every time he visited this hole, the strangest things would happen. He was convinced the area was confused with what he called the Devil's Hole. The story got really fascinating when he revealed the government had a top-secret underground base near Mel's Hole. He even said he witnessed alien activity around the area, including a massive alien spacecraft hovering over the hole during the summer solstice. Red Elk described seeing bizarre alien creatures and unusual animals around the hole that seemed to have the power to rejuvenate living beings. He was certain the hole was some kind of portal to other dimensions or realms, like a doorway to different realms or something. So, was Mel's Hole a true gateway to the paranormal, or just an old Native American legend? The wild claims of spacecraft and aliens make it hard to know what to believe. But Red Elk seemed convinced this strange pit held mystical secrets. To make matters interesting, a group of Native Americans in Nevada, on hearing his story, reached out to mention that they also had a similar hole to Mel's Hole known as the Devil's Gate, or Satan's Hole. According to them, the hole is a gateway to the spirit realm, a sacred site inhabited by supernatural beings and souls of the underworld. Those who were brave enough to stand at its edge attested to hearing unsettling whispers, humming, and even voices speaking in foreign tongues from the depths. Others even claimed to have seen ghostly lights and shadows moving around the hole's edges, while some said they felt really disoriented, like they experienced some kind of time warp near the pit. While others claimed that radios that were taken close to the hole would all of a sudden start playing records of past decades, which really was strange. Upon hearing of Mel's mysterious hole, many people came up with all kinds of different theories to explain that weird Mel's Hole. One theory says maybe the hole connects to some huge underground cave system deep in the earth that's super hot, like from lava or volcanoes. That could be why Mel said he felt intense heat coming from the hole. Some posit the hole is actually an alien portal, with extraterrestrial beings secretly traveling to and from it, while the government turns a blind eye or is covering it up. They believe the hole is really a portal to outer space that aliens use, and the government knows about it, but won't admit it. Others insist it is the site of top-secret experimental projects by military scientists, considering it close to the military base Yakima. But evidence supporting these claims remains circumstantial at best. Skeptical minds contend the whole affair is nothing but an elaborate tall tale or hoax meant to stoke intrigue. They highlight the lack of verified scientific examination of the hole to back up the extraordinary stories. For some, its purported bottomless depths and strange abilities hint at a passageway to a hollow earth. According to them, the hole goes down so deep it reaches the inside of the earth, which some people believe is hollow. So it could be an entrance down there. Meanwhile, more supernatural-minded theorists have suggested the hole could serve as a portal through space and time itself, a gateway to parallel dimensions, time travel, or other planes of existence, which, to an extent, seems to explain why the dog we mentioned earlier didn't seem to recognize his owner despite the owner's efforts to call his attention. Government agents began monitoring the area. Scientists launched expeditions to recover experimental equipment supposedly lost in its depths. Yet the true nature of this portal in the earth continued to elude understanding. After narrating his ordeal and discovery on the podcast, when Mel got home that day, He was shocked to find armed military personnel had blocked off the road to his property. They seemed to be conducting some secret operation on his land. He saw guys in hazmat suits moving around. Curious to know why the military was there or what they wanted, he asked. But they claimed a plane had crashed there. The strange thing is, upon looking around, he didn't see any debris, smoke, or anything indicating a crash. Smelling something fishy, Mel asked to speak to the person in charge. Not only did they refuse him, but they threatened him too, and even added that the land wasn't really his, and they could easily take it from him. Of course, no one was going to take it lightly, so he threatened to go to the press. But to his utmost shock, the uniformed man scoffed at him and dared Mel to do his worst, confidently telling him that even if Mel went to the media, nobody would believe him anyway. On his next appearance at the podcast, he recapped this shocking military invasion to his friend Art Bell. Things got interesting, so Art Bell invited Mel back on the show. During this follow-up, Mel dropped more juicy details. He revealed he'd just heard from his real estate agent that someone was very interested in buying his property for a mouth-watering amount of money. Even to a toddler, this seemed suspicious, especially as it was coming right after the military takeover of Mel's home. This is where it gets weird. During this back and forth, he mysteriously disappeared. This got many worried because where could he have gone to, considering that the case wasn't solved? Remember, Mel claimed armed military officers took over his land and even threatened him the last time he was on Art Bell's show. Well, Mel resurfaced on Coast to Coast again in April 2000 with more crazy details. He told Art's listeners that back in 1997, he had leased the property with the hole to an unnamed person for, get this, $3 million a year in perpetuity. Wild, right? But there was a catch. Part of the deal was Mel had to go live in Australia. However, Mel broke the agreement and came back to the US in 1999. When he returned, Mel claimed he was kidnapped off a bus near Olympia. When he finally woke up 12 days later in San Francisco, he had an IV scar and surgical tape on his arm. Even crazier, his rear molars, wallet, and belt buckle were missing. And it wasn't just any belt buckle. Mel said it was specially made with 3 rare Roosevelt dimes he found near the hole. He was convinced the government put a tracking device in his teeth, too. Now, some of Art's fans started poking holes in Mel's story at this point. They pointed out Roosevelt wasn't on the dime until 1946, the year after he died. And there's no C mint mark, which shows the coin's origin. Here's where it gets really insane. In his response, Mel claimed the dimes and gun were from a parallel universe. One where Roosevelt died before 1943, Germany won World War II, and the dimes were minted in Berlin. After this section, like the first time, Mel disappeared into the thin air again, and this time, since then, he hasn't been found. However, there was something that was found in his hole that scientists claimed posed a risk to the planet. This is where this whole tale becomes even more chilling. What terrifying effects could the discovery in Mel's hole have on nature? In one of his confessions, Mel said he saw what looked like a thick, dark beam coming out of a hole on his property. He described it as a black searchlight reaching up into the sky, and that this weird black stuff seemed to suck the light around it, kind of like a black hole swallowing everything near it. Scientists will tell you that black holes are typically formed from the collapse of massive stars. Now, let's imagine a wild situation where a black hole suddenly shows up on Earth. If a black hole appeared here, it would be a huge disaster for our planet. Black holes have such intense gravity that anything near them gets pulled in fast. The gravitational effects of a black hole are mind-blowing. This giant would have such an incredibly strong pull that it would make anything we've ever experienced seem puny. Not even light can escape. Near the black hole, gravity would start stretching and squashing stuff into long, thin strands. Scientists call this spaghettification, and it's as unpleasant as it sounds. People and buildings would be mangled into noodle-like shapes before getting sucked into the black hole. As the black hole gobbled up more of Earth, its powerful gravity would totally wreck our planet's surface. Entire cities and landscapes would get warped and destroyed. Violent earthquakes, insane winds, and epic volcanic eruptions would reshape Earth's crust. Coasts would collapse and mountains would crumble. Once the Earth passes a certain point called the event horizon, there's no turning back. Anything that crosses this boundary, including Earth, would be trapped forever. The event horizon is like a point of no escape, where even light itself can't get out. It would be a pitch-black void, impossible to see or measure anything from inside. Now let's consider the impact on Earth's structure. The black hole's enormous gravitational force would cause utter chaos. Tidal forces would go haywire, causing massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and major changes to the planet's surface. Our planet's orbit and rotation would go haywire under the black hole's pull. The climate would wildly change into something unlivable. Oceans would overflow their basins as Earth spins, causing massive floods. The air would become scorching hot in some places, and frigid cold in others. Even man-made objects orbiting our planet would go berserk thanks to the black hole's gravity. Spacecraft would spin off course and hurtle back to Earth. Satellites would be tossed around like toys before falling from the sky. As the black hole feeds on more of our planet, radiation and energy bursts like intense radiation, and supercharged particles would blast out from its center. These deadly emissions would fry Earth's surface and strip away our protective atmosphere. Any people or animals left alive would get bombarded by cancer-causing rays. A disk of super-hot, doomed matter would swirl around the black hole before getting sucked down its bottomless pit. From space, Earth would look like water vanishing down a cosmic drain. Eventually, our entire planet would get gobbled up by the black hole until nothing human-made remained. So you see why we say the Earth is a mystery box that makes our existence on Earth interesting. Did you think the story of Mel and his hole has ended? Not yet. So it turns out there were major holes in Waters' wild stories. First off, there's no record of anyone named Mel Waters ever living in Kittitas County, and people have searched every inch of Manistash Ridge without finding a trace of the hole. Jack Powell, a geologist with the State Department of Natural Resources at the time, told the Ellensburg Daily Record he thought he knew the real inspiration for Mel's tall tale. Northwest of Ellensburg, there was an old gold mine shaft in a field that might go down 300 feet at most. Powell theorized old Mel knew about this hole on private property and spun it into a sensational story. Powell was highly skeptical of Mel's claims. In 2001, a Seattle discussion group that later became the Seattle Paranormal Society contacted Powell about Mel's hole. He took them out to what he believed was the shaft behind the legend. Powell explained the local geology and why a bottomless pit was impossible. Stephen Rydell, a retired geology professor from Washington State University, also visited the purported Mel's Hole site. Like Powell, Rydell said a hole of the depth Waters described was physically impossible. What do you think about the Mel's Hole story? Is it just a myth, or you believe something of such exists? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.